from Memphis, I always heard about Andy Kaufman versus Jerry Lawler. My question is this. Do you think Andy Kaufman should be inducted into the Hall of Fame? And actually, I'm going to add a second part to that, Jim. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions about the Lawler-Andy Kaufman feud?
Well, yeah, if there's going to be a celebrity wing of a wrestling Hall of Fame, Andy Kaufman should be in it, because not only it wasn't the most important for the wrestling business in terms of revenue or impact. That was the whole Cyndi Lauper rock and wrestling thing. But as far as just a believable and logical and the original celebrity crossover of that type that had never been done before, and that people are still doing movies and books and talking about it 35 years later, shows that it was the best, most well done ever. As far as what do you think the misconceptions are at this point? Because for 25 years, everybody actually believed it. And then they did the movie and the book and everything. And even Lawler admitted it, but they had him for fucking years. Even people, he got telegrams from people in the fucking business. Lawler did, congratulating him for standing up for the business and dropping that little punk on his head. Even people who knew wrestling was a work believed this. It was, and it, on the face of it, the most preposterous thing that could possibly be done, actually made more people believe in wrestling than anything else that they could possibly do.
I would assume the misconception would be that it was somehow a very successful program financially during its run.
Well, no, not well. There was 8,000 people there that night. It was not sold out. Lawler has sold out the Coliseum and other people with Lawler many more times than that. But as far as how do you measure the publicity and the impact, how else would Jerry Lawler have gotten on David Letterman? How else would a wrestling match from the Memphis territory have gotten on national TV and been played over and over, and Sports Illustrated and Newsweek and all that intrinsic value you can't really measure? But no, it didn't. And honestly, whenever Andy would come back, it was good programming, but it didn't do really any better or any worse than most of the other stuff that they did at that time. But the difference between Andy and the Chicken was that Andy didn't want $7,000. He didn't get paid for the first few, and then I don't think he cashed his checks after that. So I mean, Lawler, in recollecting, Lawler remembers it being sold out. And I'm sure it probably looked that way from in the middle of the ring. But it was about 3,000 short of being sold out. But that's 8,000 people in a town they ran every week. So once again, the whole idea was not that this was going to be Jerry Lawler in a classic match against an NWA world champion or an AWA champion winning the world title that he's long sought after that would sell out the building, or a personal issue with a guy that this is going to be a war. We got to see this fucking fight. It actually, against the weakest opponent that Jerry Lawler ever had, or that any professional wrestler ever had in terms of physicality, he drew 8,000 people because that's how bad they hated Andy Kaufman. They wanted to see Lawler kill him, and they knew that was what they were paying to see. They knew it was going to be over probably quickly, and they knew what the result was going to be, but they just had to fucking see it. So that's pretty good on its own.
He was there a while. I mean, he was coming in and out for almost a year. By the end of it,
he didn't, after the first one, he didn't come back until that fall, I don't think.
Was it that long? Okay. But
yeah, he stayed out, and then there was the law of diminishing returns, and that the specialness of seeing this guy has diminished, but he was not a bad pro wrestling personality as a performer.
Not at all.
And so it didn't suck, and he never phoned it in, and he never winked at anybody, and there was never anything like, I am participating in a work and I'm thrilled about it and I'm having fun. It was always as legitimate as he could make it. So even though it didn't set the, box office on fire, it was fucking cool for what it was.
Two of my favorite things are, one, when him and Jimmy Hart were going at it in the studio.
The slap fight.
And Lance is in between these two idiots slapping each other. And the other is when he comes into the studio wearing the crown, celebrating that he's the king now, and he sits in a chair in front of the ring, and Lawler gets him with the fireball.
Yeah.
Just great stuff. Great stuff.
And once again, if people now are going, oh, Cornette hates all this silly wrestling shit. No, this was portrayed so legitimately that this Andy Kaufman, who the rest of the country, although people were starting to kind of get hot at him from Saturday Night Live, but most of the country thinks here's this beloved comedian and star of a network television show that is one of the most popular shows on television. But in Memphis, Louisville, and where Memphis TV showed in this two-state area, Andy Kaufman is the most obnoxious prick, worst stereotype of Hollywood celebrity that you've ever seen, and he's an asshole, and he hates women, and he likes that Jimmy Hart, and they're trying to fuck Jerry Lawler around, and we want to see him fucking brutalized. And so then you have a guy who's literally making seven figures. He had to be making seven figures even in those days on a show like that, didn't he? Certainly. A lot of money.
Well, it's a different time. I mean, the equivalent.
It was a different time, but you know, the point is he had to be making a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as this supporting character on this network TV show. But you can tune in WMC Channel 5 a Saturday morning in Memphis and watch Jerry Lawler set fire to him for free. It was another thing that you never knew what was going on with Memphis wrestling. But the people were buying it because Andy was so good at it. And it was never that Andy was going to beat up. He became a heel manager, a character in effect. He was going to find somebody to get even with Lawler for him.